Welcome back to Central Global News, a podcast discussing some of the most significant news stories from all around the world every week. This week, we're looking at protests in Russia and in the Netherlands and talk about the global financial impacts of COVID-19. Tens of thousands of people gathered in Russian cities to demonstrate against the arrest of President Putin's loudest Russian critic and opposition politician Alexei Navalny. People gathered on Sunday in about 100 cities and towns all across the country. The turnout in many cities was unprecedented, and the protests in Moscow has been the largest demonstration in almost a decade. Many young people showed up as well, who recently became more politically active on social media platforms like TikTok. The riot police were also present. They were seen using violence against protesters, and 3,500 people were detained. The police reaction has been criticized by the United States, Britain, and EU countries. President Putin's spokesman downplayed the size of crowds, claiming that only a few people gathered in the streets. In the Netherlands, riots broke out during the weekend against the newly imposed COVID restrictions. Due to coronavirus, the toughest measures since the start of the pandemic were introduced in the country, including a curfew from 9 in the evening. This led to protests in Amsterdam and other cities and towns around the country. During the riots, some rioters attacked the police, throwing golf balls and fireworks. In Eindhoven, some smashed shop windows, looted supermarkets, set bicycles on fire, and used them to build barricades. In the northern village of Urk, a COVID-19 testing center was also set on fire. According to the authorities, more than 200 people were detained by police. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte has condemned the riots, saying, "This has nothing to do with protest. This is criminal violence and we will treat it as such." The wealth of billionaires has grown by $3.9 trillion during the coronavirus pandemic, according to Oxfam International's annual inequality report released on Sunday. The report, titled "Inequality Virus," investigates the economical impact of the pandemic around the globe and claims that COVID has largely contributed to the growth of the global gap between the rich and poor. Among the wealthiest billionaires are Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, Tesla founder Elon Musk, and Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. The combined wealth of the 10 richest people increased between March and December of 2020 by $540 billion. According to the NGO, this amount would be enough to pay for a vaccine for everyone in the planet and prevent anyone from falling into poverty because of the virus. Last year, the number of people living in poverty globally could have increased by up to 500 million. Financial recovery for the world's poorest could take more than a decade, according to the estimations of Oxfam. The charity is urging governments to impose taxes on the super rich in order to reduce the gap between the richest and poorest groups in society. This is the end of the podcast for this week. Thank you for listening.